Welcome back to this week's episode of the Chamber Podcast. My name is Rob Johnson. Joining me in studio today is Samantha Smigelski. Welcome into the show.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
So Sam, you are the owner of Spirit Rising Yoga and Meditation here in Brighton. So recently acquired in February, is that right?
Yes, that's right. I took over February after teaching there for a little while.
So tell me, I want to know more about your backstory and how you got into the yoga and meditative space, but tell me what led you to go from being a teacher and a participant in the yoga studio to actually being the owner and wanting to move from I'm there, I might teach, help out from now and then, and now I'm going to run the company.
Big question there.
Yeah.
With a big answer. So my background's actually in architecture. I have 3 degrees and a lot of experience. I got laid off at the beginning of COVID, and long story short, I just had a lot of anxiety about going back. I got into a point in my career where there were not a lot of personal boundaries. My personal time was getting taken up by nothing but work, missing family and friends, and a lot of things like that I think other people can relate to as well. I'd been doing yoga for 12, 13 years at the time, and to deal with some of the stress, I turned to that practice to help me cope and process and decide what I wanted to do moving forward. It led me to doing my teacher training finally. It's something I'd always wanted to do, and I had the time and the money, so I jumped in. And then I had the privilege of joining the studio then as a teacher, and things just kind of fell into place after that. I took on more and more classes, connected more with the students in a way that I hadn't done as a student myself previously. And about October of last year, I started to think, man, I should probably figure out what I'm doing and go back to work, or what am I going to do here? And at that same time, Lisa, the previous owner, came to me and said, I'm looking to sell. Are you interested? And so one thing led to another, and February 1st, I signed and took over. It just felt right. I still had quite a bit of anxiety about going back to architecture, and the commute from Brighton to Detroit or Grand Rapids, where a lot of the job offers were coming from, was daunting, and just transitioned right in, and it became pretty smooth. There was ups and downs, of course. It was quite the adventure for a while, but it felt right. And it was the first thing that didn't give me anxiety, but made me really happy since getting laid off.
Going to the corporate background and being in that system, what are some things that you think led you away from that path and took you into the entrepreneurship area?
A lot of it was the long hours, and being a project manager for architecture, you're working with so many different fields and sections of the industry that you have people that are calling you at 6 a.m. and other people that are calling you at 6 p.m. and your hours just never stop. And the travel, it seemed really glamorous and part of why I went into architecture. And then I started doing it, and I thought, well, I don't really like traveling all that much, not for work. I'd rather save it for fun. And so it mostly became the intense hours and stressing over deadlines.
Okay. Yeah. And how's it been since February? Have you noticed a difference in schedule? Because I know the typical entrepreneurial stereotype is, it's 24/7, it's, around the clock starting a business, and it's absolute chaos. And there's elements of that are true. But have you noticed maybe a happier outlook now that you're in the entrepreneurial realm than being in corporate America?
Yeah, very good point. Definitely a lot of hours, especially in the beginning of February and March. A lot of time spent switching things over into my name and just cleaning and organizing, making the space more my own. That took up a lot of time that I hadn't thought would be quite as long as it was. But now that I've gotten into the groove of things a little bit, settled more into my routine, yes, it's a lot of hours, but it's a lot more flexible. I took a break in the middle of the day today, a 3-hour lunch, because I knew that I had an early start and a late start. So the corporate world, you would just work right through that. Whereas now I can take my time that I need to, get the break that I need, go back feeling refreshed, and find a sub if I need to for a class if something comes up, or go away on a vacation for a weekend without having to worry about deadlines, because I can manage all of that myself.
That's awesome. Mm-hmm. And it's one of those things that as an entrepreneur, you realize as you get a better control over your business, that balance does find its way as you take more control of the business. So if the pendulum is swinging towards the business is controlling you, it's pure chaos. Mm-hmm. But if it swings back towards you're controlling it, you start to feel like you have more time and things are balanced somewhat better.
Yeah, absolutely. I would completely agree with that. And having that self-awareness as a business owner, you can make the changes that you need to find that equilibrium. Or knowing that things are just going to be a little crazy this week. Okay, next week I'll take a step back and bring in something for self-care or to care for myself. Whereas with corporate, you don't really necessarily get to make those adjustments.
Yeah. It's the, it's that hamster wheel, analogy for a reason. It just keeps going around and around, and there's really no stop.
Right.
And in some circumstances, sounds like that's what you were in.
For me, it was.
Never ending cycle. So let's dive into the yoga studio. So yoga, meditation, there's a lot of other services that you do as well. So if someone were to ask you at a networking event, tell me a little bit about what you do. What's your typical elevator pitch?
Yoga and meditation primarily, but with that comes a more traditional approach to yoga. So in our westernized world, it gets categorized as purely the physical poses quite often. Our studio likes to step back and bring in breath work, bring in mindfulness and meditation, learn how the body can find a balance between what you're practicing physically versus what's going on mentally or with your stress, your energy levels, and do a little bit more self-reflection. There's traditionally 8 different sections of yoga, and we often just focus on the physical practice or asanas. So we like to do a little bit more, and we show that through things like our book club and the journalism class that we offer, the meditations that come in both of those places, and then just working a little bit more to incorporate some self-discovery and stress relief.
Okay. I want to talk about the book club and the journalism aspect of the business. So were those new additions once you were there, or those things that you inherited? So tell me about that.
I inherited them. They, one of our main teachers in the studio, Kim, she is also a writer. And so she has brought in her passion for writing and reading into yoga and has used them as a tool for some of our students to connect with themselves a little bit better. So she offers a book club every other month. The books change. Sometimes they're spiritual, sometimes they're leadership, sometimes they're political, to cater to all of the different students and have people jump in when they want. And then on Wednesday nights, we offer a class, Poses, Pens, and Inner Peace, which is much more focused on journalism and meditation. So meditation on a certain topic for a little while, and then you take some time to write about what that topic means to you, and you can share if you want or keep it to yourself and get some other group perspective on whatever came up for you. And it's something that sets us apart, and I think the students really like because it helps build community while they're learning more about themselves and their practice.
Does the political aspect of the book club get super intense? Everyone's like, you have to glue the chairs down to the studio that night?
It actually does not.
That's good. That's good.
Thankfully.
I like that.
I encourage them to read, if they do choose a political book, every perspective out there. Gain a little bit more knowledge before you jump to certain conclusions or perspectives. But it actually leads usually to a conversation that's not necessarily political, much more personal, in how those political topics have affected their lives and affected our community and things like that. So there was a little bit of concern. The teachers and I talked about, hey, are we sure we want to read this book? And we decided, let's talk about it and see what kind of community discussion we have. And our students are super considerate of each other and the differing opinions. We have a wide range of ages that come to the studio, a wide range of backgrounds and people who've lived in other countries. And I just think it gives us another way to connect with one another.
That's great. I love that. I like for myself, I like reading things that I don't necessarily agree with, but I appreciate the perspective, So tell me about new students coming into the studio. What's that process like? Is it a monthly commitment? Is it by class? So if someone's looking to get started, what direction might you point them in?
That's a really good question, especially because so many students don't know where to start. Every studio has a new student special. Ours is 30 days, unlimited yoga for $30. Great way to come in, check out all the teachers, the different classes that we offer. Because I hear all the time, well, I tried yoga once and I didn't like it. Well, different studios, different teachers, different classes. You might not have liked it. Try it again, because there's all kinds of classes and you might enjoy it and get something really great out of it. And that's a way we offer that to our students. You could also do a drop-in. It's $20 to do a drop-in class. You might as well do the 30 and come to as many classes as you can for 30 days. Yeah. And then when you get to the end of the 30 days, there's different discounts available for you to continue your membership as well, which you wouldn't have the opportunity to do with the drop-in.
I see. Mm-hmm. Now, is it, and this is just a question because I'm not familiar with the space at all. in terms of being a student of yoga. So is there different memberships for yoga versus meditation versus other things that you offer?
We have our regular class schedule, which includes yoga and meditation. It includes the poses and pens class we referenced.
Okay.
The only thing that is separate are our workshops, like a fire ceremony or a sound bath or some of those one-off specialty events, or our healing services like the Reiki, hypnotherapy, or Ayurvedic consultation. Those are all separate. We do have a class on Sunday nights in the wintertime called Yoga Bliss, which includes a little bit of Reiki. So there's a way to get exposed to it without having to purchase something separate.
Okay.
And so we try to bring in as much as we can to expose our students so they can learn what options are available to them when it's out there.
I like that. And one aspect you mentioned during the pre-show that I thought was unique was these quarterly workshops or semi-frequent workshops that you have. One of them you mentioned, you bring in a specialist and they go through kind of their background as a shaman and lead people down a certain path. Tell me a little bit more about those classes and those specialty workshops that you offer.
We, as a goal, we try to have a workshop once a month. Anne-Marie is our studio shaman. She comes in the most often, which is the quarterly, usually. And she will lead us through a discussion of what it means to be a Celtic shaman, of Peruvian education, and what she does. And then we get a chance to go on this shamanic short journey with her, journal about it. You can share if you want. And then at the end, we will work to release something that we're ready to let go of. Either it's a bad habit or something that's a stressor that you don't need to stress about anymore. And we will blow that symbolically into a toothpick and then burn it in a candle. And in another toothpick, you blow in something that you're ready to bring in. If it's calm mind or peace or better sleep habits or whatever works for you, right? Breathe it into the other toothpick and then burn that as well as a symbol of letting go of something and moving into the new Celtic quarter with something fresh and new that you want to work towards.
What's the response been like to the workshops overall?
Oh my gosh, the last one sold out. We normally cap at 20. We had 25 people there. So that one is our most popular workshop. We have one coming up July 28th. Some space still available, but it seems to be a unique service for our area, and people who are into spiritual growth really, really love it. They connect, and everybody has a little bit different experience, even though we're all in the same room sharing the same space.
That's great. Mm-hmm. So tell me what your favorite and least favorite aspect is of owning a business.
My favorite. Oh, it's so rewarding when you hear from various students about breakthroughs they've had or positive experiences they've had in your space. I recently got an email from a student I haven't even met yet. She's been in other teachers' classes. And at the end, she thanked me for creating such a welcoming and comforting space. And that was amazing. One of the most rewarding experiences I've ever had. Least favorite is tied to that. The expectation that is something you have to let go of, right? Of creating that space and maintaining it, and the fear of the financial impact, because you don't do it for the finance, or I don't do it for the financial benefit. So keeping it financially accessible to everyone who needs the space, and then maintaining that and keeping it open for everyone and finding that balance. It's more stressful when it's your business. When I was a project manager in my previous life, it was much easier to say, this is the black and white, this is what we need. But now I don't necessarily focus on that as much. So there's that fear in the back of your mind. Like, oh my gosh, can we make this happen? Are we going to pay all of our bills, keep this business open? And so far it's been really great, really rewarding in all ways that you can imagine.
There's a lot of fear in small business that I don't think is addressed as much as I'd like to see it, because it's a very normal thing when you're making all the calls and you feel like every call needs to be perfect. Every program that you put together, I'm sure you feel like it needs to be perfect. It needs to hit well, it needs to resonate with everyone. And if it doesn't, or if your own even if everyone's like, oh yeah, it was great, and you're like, yeah, but this could have been better, and like, yeah, you're very self-critical sometimes. At least I am.
That's very real.
And it drives a lot of fear over, man, am I making the right decisions? Am I making the right call? And I've always found that is normal. That's a part of the growing process.
That's what my friends tell me who are also business owners or in the entrepreneurial world in some way. They say it's very normal to feel that way.
And I've always found it to be a good thing too, because that means you care.
Right.
If you didn't, if you were like, whatever, I'm going to put together this class, we're going to, light some candles and throw them in a trash can, call it a day. That means you don't care. And in that aspect, that kind of gut check of like, oh man, I really want this to be successful for the end user. That's a signal that you value and care about the people that are coming through your door.
Well, thank you very much. I do care a lot about, it's part of the reason that drove me to take over. I wanted it to grow and be the space for other students that it was for me when I found Spirit Rising as a student 6-7 years ago, and keep it going. Make sure that people who needed the space could find it and make it what they need it to be.
I love it. So all businesses, I call them ports of entry, have a lot of different ways that they can get in contact with someone. What have you found to be the most successful way for someone to get a hold of you, experience the space, and then maintain some type of consistent relationship with you?
If they need to reach out directly, email is usually best, sam@myspiritrising.net. I can respond to that the fastest, depending on what's going on throughout my day. You could also text the studio. It's the same number that is listed in our contact information. So nothing separate there. You can just text or call. Calling is a little bit harder to get back to. Email or text is easiest. You can also follow along on social media. We've got a Facebook and Instagram that we check consistently, or just stop by anytime. You can check the schedule. It's on the website. You can pre-register for any classes and just come in, or you can come by to check out the space, see what questions you might have. We also have a ribbon cutting coming up July 28th.
Fantastic.
So great place for people to stop by, grab some snacks, and explore the studio, see what might resonate with them in our studio.
And that's the same day as the workshop.
Same day as the workshop. So, yep, right before. Busy day.
So come for the ribbon cutting, stay for the workshop. I love it. Anything else, Sam, you want listeners to know before we wrap up today?
We talked about the new student special, which I think is huge for anybody looking to try yoga. Again, every studio is different. Every class is different. So check that out, and you can find us on our website. You can find the schedule on the website, which would be the easiest way to sign up and get started with that new student special.
Love it. Thank you for your time, Sam. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, everyone, that's going to wrap up this week's edition of the Chamber Podcast. Be sure to check out my guest information in the show notes for more information on all the things coming up. Make sure you check out the Chamber website as well, also linked in the show notes. And that's going to be it for this week's edition of the Chamber Podcast. We'll catch you next week. Take care.